Hey, what's going on YouTube? So today I wanted to do a video kind of continuing my trend every week of doing like one kind of like fun video. So today I wanted to do the best stadiums in college football. So I'll actually be ranking out the top 10 and then have my honorable mentions. So this just goes by a couple things. One is obviously the size of the stadium, two is the noise, three is the I guess unique features to it, just the tradition. So that kind of rounds out everything for the qualifications, and a lot of them, like I said, there's no real way you can quantify something like this, some like tradition or noise or anything like that. So yeah, let's get started. So start with my honorable mentions. So just go ahead and name something here. Any stadium that's a part of like, you know, I'm not going to name the Cotton Bowl, I'm not going to name the AT&T Stadium, I'm not going to name the original Cotton Bowl, I'm not going to name the Rose. I understand UCLA plays there. It is a legit stadium, but I'm not going to name the Rose Bowl either. I'm keeping it to like one team specific stadiums only, unless, you know, I mean, obviously bigger stadiums have other things going on. Anyway, go ahead and start with the honorable mentions. So I got the Coliseum Memorial Stadium for Nebraska, Memorial Stadium for Clemson, and then Jordan-Hare Stadium and Beaver Stadium. So just kind of give the brief overviews of all of these. Coliseum, obviously USC's stadium. You know, it's it's a famous stadium. It's one of, I'd say, the most famous stadium in California outside of the Rose Bowl. One that, you know, does have a lot of tradition just through the mid-2000s of USC coming close to a bunch of national championships, just being a consistent contender year in and year out. You know, Memorial Stadium for Nebraska, it's just so much tradition. Sell out every single game since something like 1967 or something like that. Excuse me, sorry. Not the biggest capacity in the world, but, you know, like I said, just tradition alone brings that stadium high, and, you know, noise factor too. I won't say Nebraska plays exceptionally well at home just because they haven't been a national title contender in about, seems like 12 to 15 years now. So, yeah, that's why they're not actually on the top 10 list, but they definitely deserve an honorable mention. Jordan-Hare Stadium, obviously a very loud place to play, gives Auburn a very nice home field advantage. Not so much this year just because they are so bad compared to how they were supposed to be. But nonetheless, it does have a pretty good capacity, I believe, around 80 to 90,000. You know, like I said, a lot of noise, a lot of tradition, so not the biggest stadium on this list by any means, but definitely a good home field advantage for Auburn. So, Beaver Stadium, one of the bigger fields on this list. It has been rather empty the last couple of years, ever since the, you know, whole Joe Paterno, Jerry Sandusky thing. But, you know, it's making a comeback. And like I said, still one of the biggest stadiums on this list. When it is full, definitely one of the loudest, a lot of proud tradition. But for the time being, it's not very, I mean, you know, they draw a big-time opponent in there, then, yeah, it's going to be pretty loud. But it's not as loud as, you know, pretty much every stadium on this list. So, move on to Memorial Stadium for Clemson. Especially this year, you watching the games, that place is rocking. Ton of tradition, ton of cool things that they do there. Jesus Christ, I'm sorry, guys. Anyway, a lot of tradition there, a lot of stuff like Howard's Rock. You know, that's one of the coolest entrances in college football. That place, like I said, is really rocking this year since they are pretty good. Since Dabo Swinney took over, though, that place is just, you know, I've been to one Clemson South Carolina game, and it's just a pretty unreal atmosphere. So move on to number 10, Sanford Stadium, Georgia Stadium over in Athens, Georgia. You know, great place for Georgia to play. They do have a decent amount of tradition there. It is rocking. One of the bigger capacities in college football. And I think just one of the better looking stadiums in college football. You know, obviously when you see the big G in the center of the field, you know that is Georgia. But, you know, when you see the overview of Sanford Stadium, most, especially the bigger college football fans, know immediately that Sanford Stadium just looks very, I guess, just very pleasing to the eyes. You know, Georgia, one of the better teams at home in the country, one of the better teams in the country alone in the last 10, 15 years. But, definitely a stadium worthy to be in the top 10. So, move on to number 9, Camp Randall Stadium, Wisconsin's home field. So, like I said, a lot of tradition for most of these stadiums on this list. Camp Randall has a lot of things that, they do specifically just for Wisconsin, most notably the jump around at the student section. If you guys seen the Big Ten commercial, it's actually one of my favorite things on it is how when, they have the Wisconsin field, they got it jumping up and down. I just think that's a cool thing. One of the louder stadiums in the country. Wisconsin really has come on strong in the last 10 years. I think they've really only been a true national title contender once, but they are a top 25 team, seems year in and year out. So move on to number 8, Neyland Stadium. So, this place has been rocking this year just because of the expectations for Tennessee, but the fact that Tennessee has been a mediocre team the last 10 years, and they've still been pretty consistently, if not selling it out, at least getting 100,000 people in there. It is one of the biggest stadiums in the country. A lot of tradition, running through the T, fancying Rocky Top, all that. The checkerboard's been really cool to see of late, too. That's one of the, I think they started that it was either last year or 2 seasons ago. Yeah, it was 2 seasons ago. Yeah, 2 seasons ago against... No, it was last year. I'm sorry. Last year against Florida. So, and I think they did do it 2 seasons ago, and they did it last year, too. So, definitely one of the cooler things to see. They did it this year against OU as well. Just a really cool stadium, one that I've been to, one that I think is really cool. So, moving on to number 7, Autzen Stadium. Smallest stadium on this list by far, holds around 60,000, but might be the loudest on a consistent, or one of the loudest on a consistent basis. Not a ton of tradition, just because Oregon's really come on strong in the last 10 years. But I'd say one of the most recognizable stadiums in the country, and the fact that it only holds 60,000, I think it's the way it's designed, does promote a lot of the noise, but it's been a huge home field advantage for, outside of this year, it's been a huge home field advantage for Oregon in the last 10 years. So move on to number 6, Kyle Field, Texas A&M's home stadium. So I believe with the renovations, it holds something around 105,000 now, might be closer to 103, but, home of the 12th man, a lot of tradition. Obviously, it's A&M, so a lot of tradition as is. A lot of big games have been played there since Johnny Manziel came through. It seems like it's always sold out. A really cool place to look at. It was a little bit more recognizable before they did the renovations. But even after the renovations, people get used to it. Again, will become one of the more recognizable stadiums in the country. Like I said, one of the loudest, one of the proudest, and one of the biggest, so that's why it's so far up on the list. Move on to number 5, Bryant-Denny Stadium, home stadium of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. I believe it holds 104,000. Obviously, one of the better stadiums in the country now, just because of how good Alabama's been. One of the louder stadiums in the country as well, and I think it's like 4th or 5th biggest, something like that. Not too much to say about it. Just obviously a good stadium for one of the better powerhouses in the country the last decade to play in. So, move on to number 4, Notre Dame Stadium. I don't think it's by any stretch the biggest stadium on this list. I think it holds, I want to say 80,000. So, like I said, not small, but definitely not up there with like the Bryant-Denny's and Kyle Fields of the world. But one of the biggest with tradition. You see Notre Dame Stadium, you know where it is, you know what it's about. It seems like it's sold out every single weekend. I'm pretty sure it has been. Don't remember the exact figure, but I think they've sold out every home game in the last 25 years, something like that, which, says a lot through the, I believe it was the latter half of the 2000s, early 2010s, 2010, 2011, before they had that national title run. Tough times, but good fan base, one of the bigger fan bases in the country. Not one of the louder stadiums just because of the way the stadium's designed. If it was designed a little bit more just for sound, then, it would obviously be rocking a little bit more home field advantage. But just the amount of tradition puts it this high up on the list. So move on to number 3, Ohio Stadium, the horseshoe that Ohio State plays in. The home field advantage they experience now, I'm assuming it's one of the top 5 loudest stadiums in the country. I've never personally been there. I've driven by it. It's really cool to see. I believe it's a capacity of around 105,000, maybe a little bit bigger. But it is a stadium that is sold out every Saturday, completely rented out. Like I said, one of the louder stadiums in the country. Just fans go crazy there. I like I said, I've never been there, but it's definitely one of the ones I want to go to within the next coming years, just to see what I've heard things about the game days there, and it just sounds like it's ridiculous. Obviously, Ohio State football is religion to those fans, so tailgating must be crazy. The stadium must be crazy. Just be an all-around great game day atmosphere. So move on to number 2, Tiger Stadium. Capacity of, I want to say, 102,000. And then probably the loudest stadium on this list. So, I believe they do own the record for loudest recorded noise at one time. There's the rumors of Baton Rouge having an earthquake because of the noise going on in Tiger Stadium. I'd say if not the biggest, then one of the biggest home field advantages on this list. It's just so loud, holds so many people, and it seems like it's always raining there. It's just when you think of at least when I think of Tiger Stadium, there's one image always planted in my mind. Just sounds like a crazy place to be. So number 1, Michigan Stadium. So for me, it just goes based off size, and seeing, like I said, driven by it, never actually been there. Really want to go to a game there, but with Michigan coming back this year, coming back so strong, and if you watch their home games, the noise factor just seems like it's back. Just the pop in that stadium seems like it's back. The game day atmosphere that you could see, just all throughout history, seems like it's all back. So, you look through a lot of lists, and through the last couple of years, Michigan Stadium is probably not number 1. I'd say if you look at older lists going back maybe 7, 8 years, Michigan Stadium might be number 1, but I think just their mediocreness for, I'd say a good stretch of 4 or 5 years, kind of just ruined the luster of that stadium for a little bit. But I think the fact that they're doing better now, Jim Harbaugh's obviously turned around that program miraculously. That's back to my number 1. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, no metrics that you can have to exactly come up with the perfect list, but did as good as I could. That is my personal opinion of the top 10 best stadiums in college football. Haven't been to all of them. Have been to a decent chunk of them on that list though. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, if you have any stadium you think is great, you think any stadium should be higher or lower on the list, like I said, love to hear your comments. But yeah, that's pretty much it. See ya.